Today we sit down with Crista Grasso, the founder of the Lean Out Method. If you've read the Lean Startup book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, Necessary Endings, or any other book that talks about how you can evolve your business, this episode is for you. Today we talk about the stages of growth from emerging your business, growing your business, scaling your business to becoming a point of influence, and how it all starts with your vision, how you connect your vision to your strategy to what you do every day. We hope you enjoy this episode today with Crista Grasso, the founder of the Lean Out Method. Crista, welcome to the episode, founder of the Lean Out Method. Look forward to hearing more about yourself, your background, your business, and how we can help entrepreneurs. Please tell us a little bit about your background in starting Lean Out and what you currently do with that business.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be here. So I started the Lean Out Method several years back, and what had happened was I, like many people, graduated college with a whole lot of college loans, and I had decided that I was going to work for a few years while I was figuring out what I wanted to do to start my own business. I had always known I wanted to do something entrepreneurial, but I wasn't quite sure exactly what I wanted to do. And when I first got that first job out of college, I just so happened to fall into consulting and lean. One of my morning customers at a Starbucks that I had been managing at the time had pulled me aside and said, "Hey, I have this amazing opportunity. I think you'd be really great for it, but I need you right away. The only way I could get you to start right away is if you come in as a consultant." I didn't know what a consultant was. Sounded good to me. I got a job. Great. So I said yes, ended up taking on that role. And the company that I was with was really big into lean manufacturing. So it was an unexpected turn in the path that I thought I was going to be taking, when I ended up really enjoying and liking what I did, really falling in love with lean. And at the time, I was doing a lot of project management. So really found that I liked that style of leadership as well. And over the years, I did actually launch my own business, which was a jewelry business. And I had a lot of success with that business and scaled it very quickly. And in doing so, I scaled a little too quickly, almost put myself out of business, was working kind of around the clock, really close to burnout, had some health, issues and a lot of financial issues because of scaling too quickly and really learning how to run a business while scaling too quickly, which is the most expensive way ever to learn how to run a business. And during that experience, I was faced with some really big decisions of whether or not I was going to have to close my business, whether or not I was going to have to take the advice that I was given from my sales reps in my showrooms to move production to China, which I really didn't want to do. I wanted to keep the product in the US. And so I just took a step back from the business to look at what can I really do to make a difference, because what I'm doing today is not working. And it struck me that here I am consulting with all of these big Fortune 50 clients, helping them with lean. They're all getting these amazing results. They're scaling like crazy, really successfully. And here I am in my own business, struggling terribly. Why am I not leveraging the same lean principles that I'm applying in their business in my own business? And that was the birth of the Lean Out Method.
Yeah, that's great. Can you share with us more about what is it you do for the clients that you have? So if any of our entrepreneur listeners wanted to engage you after the podcast, or if they wanted to look up something online to learn more about the process that you add value to, like, can you speak about that process and what benefit you bring to your customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So, lean in general is about maximizing value and minimizing waste. And when you think about what we do as entrepreneurs in our business, usually when we're in a state of overwork or overwhelm, which so many of us get into, it's because we're spending our time on too many things and frequently not the right things, not the things that are actually going to help us to scale our business. And I always say people make growing and scaling their business way harder than it needs to be. And it's because we're usually trying to do all the things, or wearing too many hats ourselves, or we have a team but don't know how to effectively leverage them. And so, what I do in the Lean Out Method is I help people get really clear on what is that vision that they have for their particular business and their lifestyle, and how do the two blend together. And then we take a look at their business model to see if they have a business model that's actually going to let them achieve that vision. quite often there's a big disconnect and they can't actually achieve what they really want for that future of their business with the way that they have things structured today. So we get in and we basically figure out what actually matters and what doesn't, so you can lean out and really focus on those things that matter most. From there, we develop the strategic plans and really look at where they need to focus. And kind of, you always in a business, you want to double down on what's working. You want to be laser focused on those things that are going to make the biggest difference. You want to get rid of all the noise and the distractions. And so that's a lot of what I do with people in the lean out method.
Yeah, thanks for that. And one of the things you said is people make growing and scaling harder than it needs to be. That's one of the things you said that's striking to me, because I think that's actually pretty hard. Can you speak to what do people do in your experience that make it harder than it needs to be? Although I think it is a hard thing. What do people do to make it excessively hard? And what's your recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody who says business is easy is probably full of it because the reality is it's a lot of hard work. It's trial and error, it's experimentation, it's figuring out what works for you, for your market, for your offers, right? But where I see people making things harder than they need to be is that immense pressure that they put on themselves that they have to do all the things. They either look at their particular industry and they're like, oh, well, in my industry, this is the way that I have to approach it, or this is the only way that I can do it. And they end up doing way too many things. They work way too many hard. They work way too hard on things that don't align for them and for what they really want because they get stuck in the have tos. And so what this can look like is, okay, well, I know that the only way to grow an online business is to do video. So I'm going to start doing reels and I'm going to start a YouTube channel and I'm going to start doing IGTV or whatever they just renamed it to. And I'm going to do a Facebook Live and I'm going to do a LinkedIn Live. And they look at one simple concept and make it really complex. And then at the same time, somebody else is telling them, and you really need to have really good organic traffic and you need SEO. So like, okay, so I'm going to blog and I'm going to do this and I'm going to start a podcast and I'm going to research SEO. And they go in so many different directions and just make things very big and complex when they would have had better luck really doubling down on one core strategy and then leveraging what I call lean content management and just kind of repurposing in really strategic ways.
Mm. Can you speak to, I love the theory that you laid out there. Can you ground that in a real example? If you want to give a shout out to a company you've worked with, you're welcome to. You're welcome to not name the company. But what was the beginning state a company came to you in? And then what ultimately was the end state that you worked with them on to lean out from some things?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to use one of my clients. I use her as an example all the time because she's amazing. But we had started to work together at the end of last year. And when she finished Q1, she had actually done more in revenue in Q1 than she did in all of the prior year, which sounds really good in theory. But I think it's not always just about the results you get, it's how you get them. And so we had really done a deep dive and said, this is great. Obviously, you want to keep repeating these revenue results, but how did you get there? And she worked way too hard. She worked pretty much around the clock. She was spending time doing a lot of things that she didn't need to do, and she had a lot of inefficiencies in her schedule. So, one of the first things that we did was she wanted to work less. She was working 60 plus hours a week. She wanted to get back down to like a 40-hour work week, and she wanted to start doing 3-day weekends. She wanted to stop working Fridays. So, we looked at what she was investing her time in, starting with her vision and what she actually wanted to achieve, and then looking at what are you doing in your business to align to that. She had a lot of activities she was doing that weren't in alignment. So we eliminated those or looked at how she could transition them. But then from there, we really looked at her schedule and we did a lot of focus blocking. We did a lot of, instead of just having clients book call at any point in time on your calendar, so you never know where you're going and you're so back to back, you don't even have time to eat lunch. Do a focus block where Tuesday afternoons between 1 and 5 is when you meet with clients. And Thursday afternoons between 2 and 4 is when you meet with clients. And we put in time for her to work on her business so that she could be really strategic and do those needle moving activities instead of just that kind of like hustle hamster wheel type, get stuff done type activities. She was spending a lot of time with what we call power partners. So different people building connections with to try to generate referrals for her business. And she just was wasting time. She was talking to a lot of people who were never good referral partners. She didn't have the time to vet them before the call because she was so busy in the calls that didn't matter. So it was looking at who is a good referral partner, who is that person who's going to be able to generate business for you, and you can do the same for them. And how can, again, we focus block so you have a particular time block that you're meeting with those people. And what she did was she was able to get her schedule down to Monday through Thursday. She was able to protect her mornings for that strategic focus time in her business, to work on her business. And then she was able to leverage the afternoons to do her clients, her lead generation, and doing those strategic partnerships with people. And from there, this year, she already is at she's trending to 5x her revenue over last year. And she's been able to maintain that schedule of not working 60 hours a week anymore.
Powerful. You
Really
talked
is.
about focus blocking. I'm familiar with a concept of block scheduling. Is focus blocking another word for block scheduling, or is that different?
It might be the same. I'm not entirely familiar with block scheduling, but I'm going to assume by the title that it's pretty similar to just taking a block of time and focusing on either a single activity, start to finish, or a batch of like activities.
And that can be alone or with others.
Absolutely. Yep.
Got it.
And speaking of with others, that was one of the other things that my client did was when we looked at her zone of genius, those things that she was really strong at, we looked at where she was spending her time on things that weren't that. And she built a team around her, which really did help her quite a bit. And I think when you look at those focus blocks are really good for you to have to do your genius work, do your content creation, your thought leadership type work in those focus blocks can be really highly value add. And then doing focus blocks where you're collaborating and working with your team to maybe develop your marketing plans or do something along those lines is also really helpful.
Yeah. Crista, I love you said something earlier, like entrepreneurs sometimes find themselves in their business doing way too many things. And we talked about a few times over the last year on this podcast, the riches are in the niches. If you can focus your team and your business on what you do best, you can then lean that out to the point of the title of your company, right? With lean out method, you can lean that out and be the best in the world at it, improve your margins, focus everything there. But there's a little bit of a problem with that. Entrepreneurs sometimes are, where's the shiny object, right? It's like, oh my gosh, we could also do this. Oh my gosh, we could also do that. How do you coach entrepreneurs and prevent them from running too wild and wide in their business because they see these opportunities and they're excited and they're entrepreneurial?
Right. It's when you think about entrepreneurs, what happens, right? Either they're doing way too much and can barely keep their head above water, or they find that thing that works and then they get really bored. And so they start to mess with it or do something different. And they end up adding complexity into something that was working out of pure boredom because they lose that entrepreneurial spirit to be able to go in and, imagine new ideas and do things. And so it always comes back to regrounding yourself on your vision and the results that you ultimately want. But one of the little tips and tricks, if you will, that I give people that they really love is I think every entrepreneur should have two things. They should have an optimization hour and they should have an innovation hour. And it doesn't need to be an hour, but it just has a nice ring to it. And a lot of people who are overworked start with the hour and then expand it from there. And so optimization is where you're going in, you're taking what's working, you're trying to make it better. But innovation is your place for all those bright, shiny objects, for all of those amazing ideas that you have. And as visionary entrepreneurs, we usually have like 45 great ideas before breakfast every day, right? Yep. And it can be easy to distract ourselves and want to focus on that instead of the same old thing that we've been doing for the past, month. And so what I do with that is it's an innovation backlog. And it's the place that you put all of those ideas that you have. It's the place that you put when somebody says, you've got to try this new tool. It's amazing and it's going to save you so much time and you've got to look at it. You throw that in your innovation backlog. And you have a place to get it out of your head. And each week you pick one thing to explore. And I say innovation hour because give yourself at least an hour to truly explore it, but you can certainly do more or have your team go off and explore certain things as well. Maybe in that hour, you're bouncing the idea off of some target customers to see, is this actually a valid idea? Does it have legs, or was it just something that sounded, good at 5 a.m. before I had my coffee, and then afterwards maybe it wasn't such a smart idea. But it gives you a place to put it so that you can stay focused. And I think you do when you're creating your plans, you're looking at your schedule, you want to have space to be innovative on top of the space that you have to actually deliver on the goals and whatever targets you have for your business.
Yeah, I love that, Krista. And it makes me think, first of all, I love the idea of like there's focus blocking, right? So there's get your focus time. Like something that I've been doing this year, we talked about Rich and I earlier on this year, New Year's special. I think Rich was this year. I'm going to dedicate New Year's resolution of 20 minutes of thinking time every day. And so I get a blank piece of paper. I think, and it's really helped me through my year. I have my nice little binder. It's getting full as the year is getting complete here. But I love the idea of optimization time in terms of very focus. Again, you're taking the focus and you're taking it down. I'm not just thinking about something. I'm really zeroing in on how do I optimize certain areas of the business, and then the innovation gives me that opportunity to play in the sandbox a little bit. I'm very curious you said something else, like over time, entrepreneurs lose that entrepreneurial spirit. It becomes boring. Okay, I keep doing the same widget. I know I've been told by Krista to stay focused and to lean out my business, but now I'm bored, right? I'm curious as to in your lean out method, when you're working with an entrepreneur, where does succession planning come in? Where the entrepreneur maybe brings in new blood to run the business, even though it's still their business, so they can actually go have fun with some of their innovative sandbox ideas. Do you work with entrepreneurs in that fashion?
I do. So when I look at business, I see it as having four major stages. You could break it down into some sub stages, but we'll keep it high level. So there's a merge, which when you're back in a merge, you're just trying to find product market fit. You're trying to find what is the right offer for the right person at the right price so that it gets some legs, right? Then
Yep.
you go into grow. You're trying to grow that offer. You finally figure out what's working. You start to lean out. You start to figure out like, okay, this part works, this part doesn't work. I'm bringing in more customers, but you're also raising your, resources at the same time. Then you move into scale. And that's where you're really trying to make an impact. You're trying to scale your profits beyond, the resources that are required to deliver it. And then you get into influence. And a lot of the entrepreneurs that I work with really want to be in that space of influence. And
Yeah.
when you truly want to be in that space, at that point, you're not that involved in the day to day. You're the thought leader. You're
Yeah.
out there talking about the topic, changing your industry or your market, or you've got a really strong point of view on something. Maybe you've written a book or do speaking from stage quite a bit, but there's something that you're out there doing that, and your team is running the day to day. And I think through each of those different stages and evolutions in your business, you need to be strengthening your team and strengthening your role as a leader so that you can bring on those really great people. You can delegate, you can trust in them to take your vision, bring it to life, keep the quality, and the expectations around what your brand is in the market intact, while you can go off and do those really innovative entrepreneurial things.
Yeah, I love that. Right, emerge, grow, scale, influence, and you know, there's also a book when I think about emerge, and I know the title of your company, Lean Out Method. One of the books that comes to mind is the Lean Startup,
Mm.
a book. And I typically, and Rich and I have started some companies together where it's like, okay, where are the milk crates because we can't afford to buy chairs, and we're not going to even buy the chair because that would cost money. We need that money for marketing, and you kind of go through that Lean Startup method. Where so I think people generally from the concept of starting up understand, hey, I only have so much money and I got to pound it and get that business emerging. I'd like to spend a little bit of time on the growth scale and then to the influence, because you're right. As an entrepreneur, right, the dream and vision is that you can have, I don't want to call it passive income because it's not passive, but you can have a business that's generating income for the people working there. It is generating a profit. As an owner, you have a business, just like owning real estate, where it's profitable, it's making money, but you can also go where your passion is. That could be a foundation, that could be a thought leader in the space. So I'd love to talk about that. But before we talk about influence, I want to go back to grow and scale. I would say 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs cannot define the difference between growing and scaling. I don't know why that concept is so difficult, but it is. It's very like, are you growing or are you scaling? And they're like, well, what do you mean? I thought like they use scaling when they really mean growing. They mean growing when they're really trying to scale. Can you, in a very simplistic terms, tell us what the difference is between growing a business and scaling a business?
Yeah, absolutely. So the example that I always give is when you're growing, you're increasing your revenue. You're increasing the money that you're bringing in. Maybe you're doubling your revenue, you're doubling the number of clients. It looks good on paper if you're looking at a pure number basis. But at the same time, you're also growing the resources required to deliver on that. You haven't yet built efficiencies into the process. You typically haven't put systems in place yet. So as you're delivering, more to more people and you're bringing in more revenue, it's taking more time, it's taking more money, it's taking more people, it's taking more skill and knowledge. And so as you're growing, your revenue is going up and your resources are going up at the same or greater rate. When you get into scale, at that point, your revenue is going up and it is skyrocketing above the amount of resources required to support that. So you're putting systems in place. You're getting really smart and strategic in the way that you're doing things. And as a result, your profitability is actually going up because your revenue is outpacing the resources required.
Okay, so to put it in financial terms, um, if I'm growing my business, chances are my net income percentage may be 8% as an example, right? So my net income margin is 8%. And then the next year I grow my business, but it's still 8%, or maybe it's even 7% because I had to hire an extra salesperson and I'm making
Mhm,
less profit. My net margin is either flat or going down or really not going up much because I'm in growth mode. I'm reinvesting. I don't really
mhm.
care about my net margin. But when you get to a certain point where you're like, okay, now we need to scale, what we're really talking about is scaling that net margin percentage from 8 to 10 to 12 to 15, and growing that net profit. And there's the Vern Harnish wrote the book Scaling Up, and part of their concept is, revenue is vanity. But really at the end of the day, it's, are you scaling your net profit? And I think it's what you're really saying there is
Mhm.
scaling is getting more juice out of the lemon, so to speak, versus just working harder.
Yeah, it is. And when you look at your role in that too, when you're in a stage of growth, things are usually very highly dependent on you. Sometimes you're doing a lot of those things yourself, but also a lot of times you're key to the decisions that get made. So it's really hard to step away. It's hard to take a vacation. It's hard to take a night off without your phone pinging from your team or from your clients because you're so integral to everything that's happening during that growth stage. By the
Yep.
time you get to a scale stage, usually you've got that team around you, you've got those systems or automations or things in place to support it, and you're not the central hub of all things anymore. That's when you truly get that freedom in your business that most entrepreneurs are looking for.
Hmm. I would love to turn this to get a touch more of your story and ask you if you don't mind sharing in which of the four stages is your business right now?
Yeah, so I actually have three businesses. So Lean Out
Okay.
Method is currently
So
in
so
the
so let's
scale.
take them one by one. Which business is in what stage for you?
Yeah, so Lean Out Method right now is in the scale stage. And that was a pretty quick scale. I officially launched Lean Out Method at the end of 2019. I've technically been doing it for almost 20 years now, but I turned it into an actual business in 2019. So we moved through the grow stage and we're just now tipping into scale. My Chris Cara jewelry business is actually back at the growth stage. I had scaled that really big, really fast. I put a lot of those lean practices in place that we had talked about and really got the business to a great place. But I shifted my focus because you can't do all the things all the time. And so I turned Chris Cara into a little bit more of a hobby business at the time, right now, so that I can focus on scaling Lean Out Method. And then my other business is called Profitable Planner Co. And that is very much in the growth stage. It is a newer business. And that's where I help entrepreneurs take that thing that they're known for, their signature offer, and turn it into a physical printed product like a planner in order to scale their business. So
Mm,
that's a newer business.
yeah, cool. Lean out is in a scaling stage, you had
Mhm.
said. How are you scaling it? How are you getting more efficiencies of the work behind the scenes and yielding more revenue?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went from a typical one-to-one model, which I started with, most of my business was one-to-one, to moving into more of the one-to-many model. So my signature program is my Simplify to Scale Business Accelerator. And so I have other coaches that work with me. I've certified people in the lean out method, and I do have people on staff who are full-time coaches. And so it gives me the ability to leverage my time more as well because they're also working with people. It allows me to have more people in my programs, but still have that high touch, kind of high support vibe that I feel is really important in the work that I do. But they don't necessarily need me all the time because I have that team of coaches and experts surrounding me that can do that. So that was the really big change, was bringing on the experts who could do what I could do, and being able to leverage that to grow the group program.
And how many certified coaches do you have today?
Today I have three.
Okay. And are any of them uh, former clients of yours?
Yes.
Okay. How many of the three, just out of curiosity?
One.
Okay. So one of them was a former client of yours in the lean out method. Am
Mhm.
I naming that correct? Is it a lean out method?
Correct. Yes. Lean out
Okay.
method.
And so they got so much value from you as a coach that they wanted to absorb even more about the method you were applying so they could apply it within their own business. And
Mhm.
then now they are also coaching others on other businesses as well.
Correct. Yes. So she has her own business, and her business has four facets. One of the facets of her business is business. And so she leverages the lean out method for the business arm of the coaching that she does in her business.
Hmm. Awesome. Congratulations on expanding where your revenue sources are and expanding your influence by having a certification program. I'm sure that was a big step for you. Um, that's wonderful. Question
Yeah,
for
there's
you on you had talked about strategy. What I know of strategy is it is the allocation of scarce resources, and strategy serves a vision. Can you talk about how you connect that with and for the entrepreneurs who you coach, the connection between vision, strategy, and then ultimately getting lean on priorities and where they spend time?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think there's a big disconnect for a lot of people. When I start working with someone, I'll usually say, "Do you have a vision?" And they say, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I have a vision." And sometimes it's not really fully fleshed, sometimes it is. But when you look at their day to day activities and what they and their team are spending their time doing, quite often it is not actually in support of that vision. And to me, that's where the strategy comes in. That's the bridge. And so when you look at the vision, I think it's really clear that you know when you look into the future, for some people, they can see 5 years in the future, some can see 30, whatever that point in time in the future is, you know, for yourself as a leader of that business, for your life and your lifestyle, for the business itself, as well as for your customer, what that vision is that you have. The strategy is, how are you going to get there? What is the order of events? What things are you going to try, right? Because business is a big experiment. So what do you want to try next to see, if you can get closer to that vision? And that should inform what you do on a day to day basis. So to me, your vision breaks down into the goals that you're going to do in the near term. So you've got a long term vision that you look at, what are the near term goals that are going to support that. You look at your entire business model and how you have your business structured. What are your offers? Who do you work with? What do you charge? Who do you partner with? All of those different things comprise that. And you pull all that together, and that informs what you spend your day to day on. And if you want to be lean in your business, everything that you do is in support of that overall vision. And you're really strategic in what you invest your time in.
So it sounds like you attach vision is where you're going, strategy is the how, and then where you spend your time, that's the what. So it's like, where are you going? How are you going to get there? And what are you doing to get there?
Yeah, because there's so many different hows, right? There's a lot of different ways that you can achieve a vision. It's just figuring out which one fits best for you, for your business model, for your customer, and for that direction that you want to take things in.
Again, I'd invite you to ground it in your personal example, would you mind sharing what is your vision and what is your strategy? Where is your vision going? How are you getting there with your strategy? And then what are you doing to serve that strategy, just as an example for the model for our listeners?
Yeah, I'll actually share this year, I achieved a very large part of the vision that I've had for many, many years. So I'll share that as an example because I always do a workshop. And in the first day of the workshop, I talk about vision and I share my vision with people. And I've done this for years. And part of that vision is I've spent 21 years working with these really large Fortune 50 corporate clients. And as much as I enjoyed that work, over the years, I found I was getting a lot more fulfillment and I enjoyed a lot more working with entrepreneurs and small business owners. And so I had always said, my vision is to work exclusively with entrepreneurs and small business owners, to be really close to the impact, to be able to see them, achieve their goals and that transformation in a really rapid way that's different from what I do with my long term engagements with my corporate clients. And I've shared this over and over and over again. And, it's in the spirit of not working 80 hours a week. There's only so many entrepreneurs and small business owners I've been able to work with while working full time with my corporate clients. And so I made the decision earlier this year when I looked at my strategies. I was like, you know what? It's time. I'm going to make the change. Financially, it might not actually on paper look like the right time, but it's the right time. I know it's the right time to make the change. And so I looked at, instead of could I do this now, my strategy came into how could I do this now? And it was really looking at, if I want to make that change right now this year, instead of going into next year with that same vision and carrying it forward, what would that look like? How could I go about doing that? And I mapped it out. I came up with a solid strategy for it. And in June, I made that transition. And so today, I spend my days 100% working with entrepreneurs and small business owners. And I love it. It's just a completely different energy. I feel more excited to get up and do my work in the morning. And not that I didn't love the work I did with my corporate clients, but it just very different. And so that's how I took that vision that I had and actually turned it into reality this year.
Yeah, and Krista, what you're really talking about is, you said earlier, quote, simplify to scale. You simplified your customer base, right? And
Completely.
now I'm going to focus. And you said earlier, the Note method is at the scale side of your business, so that kind of aligns to simplification of your
Yep.
business. You
And
know, sorry.
I was going to say, and I'm scaling my business through my Simplify to Scale program.
Yeah, exactly, right. So it all kind of all like fits back in together. So I really love that, and it again, it strikes me that a lot of entrepreneurs start their business, they're emerging, they're getting things going, and everybody understands grow. I truly believe everybody understands as an entrepreneur what growing means. I don't believe, and I think this is the key to your business, right? Is I really don't believe once they've grown, they know how to scale. And you can't go to that influence stage until you scale.
Right.
So if I understand everything correctly at a very macro level, is where you come in, lean out method comes in, and your team is where they need to simplify to scale. They've grown their business, but now they got to simplify it to get to the next step, right? To get to
100%.
that scale side, to get that influence side. So I completely get that. What is the preventer? So if I'm a business, right, and I've grown a lot. My revenues have grown 20% every year. I got a lot of customers. I now have more staff than ever. So my revenue shot up. My employees are shot up. My expenses are shot up. Everything shot up. I got more risk because now I have a higher working line of capital to pay for everybody. I got more things on the table. What prevents me from moving to the scale side of it? What's my limiting factors as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's interesting because if you think about the concept of lean, right? It's less waste, more value. Who doesn't want that?
Mm,
But the reality is getting rid of, stopping doing, or saying no to things that you've done that have gotten you to the success that you have today is really scary for some people and really hard to do. And there's a quote that I'm probably going to get wrong, but it's, what got you here won't get you there,
Yeah,
something along those lines. And you do have to
exactly.
constantly be evolving. You have to be willing to say no to something that worked yesterday or might have even worked this morning in order to create the space to scale and in order to do what's next. And it's just really hard for people because it makes them really uncomfortable. And if you've never scaled before, you don't know what you don't know. What you know is what got you to your level of success today. And so it's being willing to take those steps. It's being willing to let go of things. It's being willing to try something new, even when everything inside you is screaming, keep doing what I'm doing, because that's what got me to the success that I have today.
Yeah, Krista. I mean, that's one of my favorite books too. What got you here won't get you there. It kind of plays right into this. But what's difficult is you start a business with the milk crates. You're lean, you're growing, and then as you start growing, there are people you've grown with that you've had for 5, 7, 10, 15 years that are with you on this journey. And then you get to the point where, okay, now I need to scale, and you start looking at your team and you start looking at how to lean out and be efficient, and you just can't do it. As an entrepreneur, you just can't do it. To me, like your point of stop doing things or say no, if I took it a step further, it's some of the people you have, because people is usually a large piece of a business. They got you here, they helped get you here, but they're not going to take you on the next journey. But you can't do anything about it because your heart is so much into them, and they were sitting on the milk crates with you. How can I let this person? How does lean out help a business with those types of heartfelt decisions that entrepreneurs on their own just will not make?
Yeah, it's such a great example because I think so many businesses do face this when they go through that scale stage. And I think there's the personal element of things and there's the business element of things. And as an entrepreneur, you've always got to make the right business decision first, and then you personalize it, then you humanize it. But you've got to start with the business decision. And so I think if you really look, and let's say, Jane has been on your team for the past 15 years, and Jane was amazing when you first started, but over the years, you're noticing that there's less of a place for Jane. And when you look at that next level for your business and you look at where you're trying to scale to, you don't see a space for Jane. Right? I think you have to, as the business owner, look at and say, is there something I can do? Can I invest in her? Can I send her to training? Is there something I can do that will allow her to step into the role I need for her to stay a valuable person on this team? If yes, then you make that commitment and you do it and you be transparent with her that that's what it's going to take to stay. And if not, then I think you have to just make the business decision that it's not going to work. She's not going to be here long term, but then you humanize it.
Yeah.
And that might be working with her, thanking her so much for her, the work that she's done, helping her find her next thing, giving her a reference, really going out of your way to set her up for success so she feels as valued as you feel she is, but you still got to make the right business decision first.
Yeah. Easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather just keep growing than let go of somebody that poured their heart and soul into my business over the years. And it's one of those that, quite honestly, I evaluate it similar, Rich. If you think about it, it's like editing your own homework, right?
Yeah.
You could edit your own paper a million times. You're still not going to notice that spelling error you made. But Krista could look at it once and go, hey, you got a spelling error right here in the second paragraph, right? And it seems to me like this is a very similar method. As an entrepreneur trying to scale your business on your own, you can't edit your own work because your heart is too much in it, or you can't see what's going on. And there's another book that, as you were talking about, it reminded me of is Necessary Endings. Is there are things that come to a necessary ending, and either you're going to control that path, or it may actually go the wrong way and end up being a bigger problem. But Rich, I could tell you, like, I'd love to get your take on this. I think that's part of the value of what Krista and Lean Out Method does is you can't edit your own work. I mean, Krista, you could come into my business. I can go into your business. We all can go into Rich's business and point out what's wrong and what he needs to do about it. But actually doing it is the hard part. What are your thoughts on that, Rich?
I'd agree. I think sometimes all let me rephrase that. All entrepreneurs at some level have coaching in their blood. They care about people, whether it be their customer or their staff members. They care about people and they want to improve the lives of others. as a coach, it's very difficult to coach ourselves. And sometimes we have to actually displace ourselves and rise up above our situation and say, if I were someone who I was coaching, what advice would I give that person? That's what I should do next. Or actually go enroll a coach. But so long as, even as a coach, you're looking at what's right in front of you, if you don't elevate above that somehow, you can't see the forest through the trees.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that, Crista?
I agree. And honestly, that was to me the epiphany with my jewelry business, where I realized basically that I wasn't being lean and that I wasn't leveraging what I did. It took that time to step away. I actually went and booked a hotel room and I went away for a few days. I took myself completely out of my environment and out of my routine. And I purely took time to try to reflect. And I did ask myself those questions: is if I were coaching my business not as my business, what would I tell them to do? What would I be seeing that I wasn't seeing? And it was probably about the third day of doing that that it finally hit me. It was not like an immediate thing. It took me a while to get there. I could have also invested in a coach or consultant, and if I were doing it again, that's the route that I would take. But back then, that was the approach that I took, was giving myself that space to really go and think about, what did I really want for this business? Was I willing to close it? Was I willing to take production overseas? What was I willing and unwilling to do? And that was when that came to me.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, this time has absolutely flown. I've got 2 questions for you before we wrap. One of the questions is, I would love to hear your what people would call an elevator pitch for Lean Out. Do you have one that you can share with all of our entrepreneurs?
No pressure or anything. Yeah, I mean, to me, leaning out your business, if you want to lean out your business, you want to get back control of your time. You want to do things that fuel you, things that add a ton of value to your clients, and you want to eliminate everything that drains you and that just doesn't take you to that next level that you have for your business.
It is time to lean out in that case. Last question I've got for you. If there were one thing that you could offer as a nugget to all entrepreneurs that you just feel, boy, all entrepreneurs could benefit from knowing this, what would it be?
So it's going to go back to something I shared earlier, and it's that it starts with vision. Really take the time to create your vision and then leverage that vision to run your day to day and what your team's focused on, whether it be in a day, a week, 90 days, and make sure that it's in support of that vision. And don't be afraid to evolve your vision, because your vision evolves and grows as you, as a leader, and as your business evolves and grows. But I think you do have to have that North Star. You have to have that vision. You have to know where you're going, because that's what's going to allow you to make the right decisions in your business, to make sure that what you're doing is directionally correct, and to make sure that that valuable time, money, and energy that you're investing in your business is on the right things.
Yeah, I love that, Krista. And my thoughts, as I'm leaving this conversation, is you can start up your business and you can grow your business, but at some point you're either going to keep growing yourself into boredom, into more stress, into more liability, into more bank notes, into more, and then COVID hits, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I got this massive business and I just grew it all these years and never reaped the benefits from it. Bringing on somebody like yourself in your firm to help scale out the business and help you get to that influence stage is so critical. We didn't talk enough about influence. Maybe we'll have to talk about that at a different time, but getting to that is really the ultimate position of an entrepreneur, but you're never going to get there unless you scale. You're never going to get there unless you lean out. Thank you very much for your time today. This was a great conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I love this conversation.
Please stick around for a few more minutes while Rich and I break down this episode.
John, lean out and simplify to scale.
It's hard, Rich. It's really, really hard as an entrepreneur when you see all the opportunities in your business. We can go diversify over here. We can start a new service line over here. We can keep going. And I think entrepreneurs are ingrained to grow. They're built like almost a robot. I have to grow my business, grow my business, grow my business. And to take a step back and to bring on somebody like Krista to help you lean out, to scale, maximize profitability, and help you get to that influence stage is something that's very, very missed, I think, in the entrepreneurial industry.
Yeah, and one of the things I'm taking away that I'm going to have to chew on how I want to use it, when she talked about focus blocking and then an optimization hour and an innovation hour.
Yeah.
I do not have an innovation hour, or if it's not an hour, a dedicated period of time. Okay, here's where I'm going to innovate to do new things. It's kind of always ever present, and maybe it would be better if it were more focused. But the one that I do not do purposefully, and I have a feeling many of our entrepreneurs don't either, is an optimization hour.
Yeah.
And when I think optimization, I think to get the same results with less effort, literally like leaning out. How can you get the same results? It's not about getting better results. That's kind of your innovation hour. The
Right.
optimization hour is what can I cut out? And I really lose nothing in the way of the benefit or the results.
Yeah. I mean, I actually think, and it would have been fun to ask Krista this question. I think she created the innovation hour just to appease the entrepreneur about the shiny object syndrome. Okay, look, we'll set up a time for you to think about those things, but let's also do an optimization hour. And you're 100% correct. I believe that entrepreneurs, most of the time, even if you told them, even if they had a focus time to think on their business, they are thinking innovative. They're thinking, how do I get more sales? How do I bring on a sales rep? How do I create a new service line? How do we fix our website? It's all growth, 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 growth. And I think it kind of segues a little bit, Rich, to the grow versus scale. And I truly believe that. I don't know if you experience this, but I really believe that 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs don't know the difference. Isn't growing? I'm growing my business. What do you mean scale? And I think she very, very appropriately talked about how growing is just growing revenues, but also growing expenses, growing staff, growing your line of credit at the bank, growing your risk. It's growing. It's growing for the sake of growing. And by the way, I've been there. I've been there when you're growing for the sake of growing. You're not making any more money. Maybe you're not making any money at all, but you're growing. It feels good. You got more team. The brands, more people know the brand, but you're not profitable. And when that happens, you put too much leverage on your business. You put too much risk at your business, and you risk losing it all. And you do it the opposite way, where you grow for a period of time and you figure out, how do I optimize it in that optimization hour every week, and you figure out how to scale your business. Now you're generating more profit to the bottom line. You have potentially less risk, maybe even less people, generating more margin. That can move you very quickly to that influence stage. So I really love that difference. I mean, it's a massive differentiation point. And I'll end with this. If I was talking to an entrepreneur about what Krista could do to help their business, I would ask them simply this question: are you growing or are you scaling? And the look on their face would be like, what's the difference? Okay, you need to talk to Krista.
Yeah. I loved her definition of it. And in the differentiation between growing and scaling, in my mind, I go, both of them are increasing revenue. That's a consistent. What's not consistent is when you are growing, you are increasing your costs and your resources. When you're scaling, your costs or resources maintain to be the same or even decrease. Both of them you're increasing revenue on, though. So in the difference between growth and scaling is not really about the increase in revenue. It's really about where are your expenses to get that increase in revenue. Two ways that I know of that our entrepreneurs measure that. One of them is obviously measuring by the bottom line. Is your profit increasing? That's one of the ways you could tell if you are growing or scaling. The other one is looking at revenue per employee. So if you look at your overall revenue, or you could look at it as profit per employee, your overall revenue or your overall profit for your head count in your business, that number, if you're scaling, is going up year over year over year. Do you have other ways in your experience that an entrepreneur can be assured in a measurable way that we're scaling now, we're not growing?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before I do that, I do want to challenge something you said. I don't believe that in growing and scaling, your revenue is increasing. I don't think that's a fair characterization and an accurate statement necessarily all of the time. And I'll give you an example. Crista made a decision to start scaling her business. She got rid of her corporate clients. It wasn't the best revenue decision. She actually probably is taking a step back revenue wise to refocus the business to be able to scale the business in the niche she wants to be in. I know of another business recently that was growing and growing and growing, and they made a strategic decision to actually get out of the business they had built over 15 years to go into a more focused line over here. Their revenue dipped temporarily for the first couple of years, but they were more profitable, and then they scaled it back up again. So I don't necessarily think that scaling is increasing revenue. In some cases, as an example, Rich, you have profitable clients and unprofitable clients. Sometimes when you do your optimization, maybe, let's fire these 5 clients. I know they generate a lot of revenue, but they don't make any money. So let's get rid of them.
I have a question and clarification for you on it.
Yeah.
In the period of time that revenue goes down,
Yes.
are you calling that you're scaling while your revenue goes down in that period of time, or is ultimately scaling like you're cutting back? I don't know what the period of time between growing and scaling is that your revenue goes down, but I wouldn't say when your revenue goes down, you're scaling in that moment. I would say maybe you're leaning out and preparing to scale, but ultimately scaling I do picture as an increase in revenue. But the act between growing and scaling, there may be a decrease in the middle. That I align with. And if you don't, I'd love to hear more.
No, I think you make a fair statement. So what we're really saying is, before you transition from growing, and this would be great to have Crista still on and asking her this question, but
Yeah.
when you transition from growing to, okay, now I'm going to scale, you are correct. There might be a period of time where it's not grow or scale, it's lean out.
Right.
And then you lean it out and then you scale, as opposed to jumping straight from grow to scale. Because that's a fantastic point, Rich, because I think really my definition and understanding of scaling, according to our conversation here, is when your net profit percentage is going up. Like one of the things you had said in terms of KPIs, right, the key performance indicators, is profit going up and revenue per employee going up. I would actually say it's not profit going up, it's profit percentage going up. Because if you make $1 this year and next year you make $2, you'd say, well, I made an extra $1. Yeah, but you don't know what else went into that. You may have just grown the business to make that much money. You weren't necessarily more efficient, leaning out, scaling, and then how scalable or sustainable is that as you continue to grow the particular business? So I think that scaling is really your profit percentage.
Yeah, I like that.
Up. So going up from a 10% profit to 11% profit would be, okay, scaled the business.
Yeah.
And if we add more, it's going to keep going. Then there's profit per employee, I would say, versus revenue per employee. Because revenue per employee means you may be more efficient with your employees, but maybe you put in systems that cost you a lot of money to do that, and you're getting to the same destination, same point. I think those are two really, really key areas. The other area that I look at is, in your P&L, you typically would have a percentage of your expense to your revenue, right? That ultimately, so your labor may be 20% of revenues, and your rent may be X percent of revenues, and your insurance is X percent of revenues. So one of the things that Scaling Up does in their book is they talk to you about the 1 degree, the 1% change of what that means. So if you can lower your labor by 1%, your rent by 1% of revenue, and you keep scaling your percentages down of expenses, that would be another thing to track. But at the end of the day, your profit percentage is the key. If your profit percentage is going up, you're becoming more efficient as you're growing.
Well, I think one of the things we discovered just in our debrief here is we're going to need to get back a hold of Crista and let her know that there are 5 stages, and the middle stage of them is actually a promo of her business. There's emerge, grow, lean out, scale, and influence.
Yeah, absolutely. And getting to that influence point is the goal. You cannot get to influence until you lean out where you've grown and you scale it. Then you can enjoy and reap the benefits of your influence.